On the outskirts of town, where streetlights faded into darkness and the trees loomed like silent watchers, there lay a road that no map dared to name. Locals whispered about it in hushed voices, calling it the Lost Highway, a stretch of cracked asphalt that seemed to stretch on forever, vanishing into the foggy horizon. No one remembered when it was built or where it was supposed to lead. They only knew one thing: those who ventured down it were never seen again. But curiosity has a way of tempting even the most cautious souls. It was just past midnight when Jake and Sam pulled up to the rusted "No Trespassing" sign, its paint peeling like old skin. They were thrill seekers, urban explorers chasing legends and ghost stories, their camera gear loaded in the trunk. Jake leaned out the window, his flashlight cutting through the murky mist that clung to the road like a shroud. "Looks creepy enough," he smirked, brushing off the chill that crept up his spine. "Ready to prove this place is just another urban myth?" Sam hesitated, eyes fixed on the twisted branches above, their crooked limbs arching over the road as if trying to claw at the sky. "I don't know, man. This place, it feels wrong." But Jake was already out of the car, setting up his camera, his breath fogging in the cold night air. "Come on, scaredy cat. Imagine the views we'll get on the channel. Exploring the haunted Lost Highway. It's gonna blow up." Reluctantly, Sam followed, his flashlight trembling in his hand as they walked down the cracked pavement. Silence engulfed them, thick and suffocating, broken only by the crunch of dead leaves beneath their boots. The air was heavy, tinged with the scent of mildew, and something else, something metallic like rust or blood. Then they saw it, a faded signpost leaning at an unnatural angle, its letters warped and barely legible. "Welcome to the Lost Highway. Turn back now." Jake laughed, the sound echoing unnaturally through the darkness. "Nice touch. Someone's really trying to sell the haunted vibe." But Sam's eyes were glued to the shadows beneath the trees. Shapes moved there, crawling on all fours, their limbs twisted at impossible angles. He blinked, and they were gone, swallowed by the darkness. He shivered, his skin prickling with goosebumps. "Jake, I think we should go back." Before Jake could respond, the air grew colder, a biting chill that cut through their jackets and burrowed into their bones. The fog thickened, curling around their ankles like ghostly fingers. From somewhere down the road, a sound echoed, low and guttural like a growl. Jake's flashlight flickered, the beam sputtering before plunging them into darkness. Panic surged through Sam as he fumbled for his phone, his trembling fingers struggling to unlock the screen. But there was no signal. There was nothing, just darkness and that unholy growl, closer now, hungry. A shadow moved at the edge of his vision, long and gaunt, its limbs bending and cracking as it unfolded itself from the fog. Eyes glowed in the darkness, hollow and yellow, fixed on them with ravenous intent. More shadows joined it, slinking from the trees, their bodies misshapen, faces twisted in silent screams. The guardians of the Lost Highway. They moved closer, their limbs creaking like ancient wood, their mouths stretching open far too wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth dripping with black ichor. Their eyes never blinked, never looked away, fixed on the two intruders who dared trespass on their cursed road. Sam grabbed Jake's arm, his voice a broken whisper, "Run." But the highway stretched on before them, endless and empty, swallowed by the fog. There was no turning back. There was nowhere to run. Their screams were swallowed by the night, echoing down the lost highway as the guardians closed in, their shadows merging with the mist. And then silence. The road lay empty once more, waiting patiently for the next travelers curious enough to seek its forbidden path. The fog swallowed their screams, absorbing every echo until the night fell silent once more. Only the whisper of the wind through the trees remained, mournful and cold. But the lost highway was not done with them yet. Jake's lungs burned as he ran, his legs aching with every desperate step. He could hear Sam's panicked breaths behind him, rapid and shallow. The fog clung to them, twisting around their bodies, pulling at their clothes like invisible hands trying to drag them back. But the guardians were faster. Their twisted limbs moved with unnatural grace, their hollow eyes gleaming in the darkness. They did not hurry. I didn't need to. Their prey was already trapped. The road seemed to stretch endlessly, the cracked asphalt rolling out before them, leading nowhere. No landmarks, no crossroads, just the same gnarled trees and swirling mist. The shadows moved between the branches, keeping pace with them, their elongated limbs contorting as they crawled and slithered through the darkness. Jake's flashlight flickered again, and this time it died completely. No, 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 he choked, smacking it uselessly against his palm. But the batteries were drained, the light gone for good. They were plunged into pitch blackness, the only illumination coming from the faint, sickly glow of the fog. Jake! Sam's voice was shaking, his silhouette barely visible through the haze. What do we do? A growl echoed from behind them, low and guttural, vibrating through the air. It was close, too close. Jake grabbed Sam's arm, yanking him forward. We keep moving. Don't stop. Don't look back. They stumbled down the road, the fog growing thicker, denser, pressing in on them from all sides. Shapes moved within it, fleeting and skeletal, faces emerging from the mist with hollow eyes and gaping mouths frozen in silent screams. Faces they almost recognized, faces of those who had disappeared before them. The legends were true. No one ever left the lost highway. Jake's foot caught on something, and he crashed to the ground, his palms scraping against the rough asphalt. Pain shot up his arms as he scrambled to his feet, his eyes widening in horror at what had tripped him. A skull, half buried in the road, its empty sockets staring up at him. The jaw hung open, twisted into an eternal scream. The surrounding asphalt was cracked and broken, as if the road itself had swallowed the body. Sam stumbled backward, his face pale. This isn't real. This can't be real. Another growl, this time from above. They looked up, and the shadows moved, crawling along the tree branches, their limbs bending in unnatural angles. One of them dropped to the ground in front of them, its body long and gaunt, its arms stretching almost to the ground. It moved forward, its spine curving, bones cracking as it twisted its neck to look at them. Its mouth split open, revealing jagged teeth dripping with black ichor. The guardian let out a shriek, a piercing wail that cut through the air, and the others answered, their voices rising in a chilling chorus. From all directions, they emerged, climbing out of the fog, crawling from beneath the road, dropping from the trees. Their hollow eyes gleamed with hunger. Run! Jake screamed, his voice cracking as he grabbed Sam and bolted down the road. But there was no end in sight, no break in the fog, no escape from the endless highway. The shadows followed, their limbs elongating, their bodies stretching as they moved, growing taller, faster. The fog churned around them, swirling like a vortex, warping the road beneath their feet. The air grew colder, biting into their skin, seeping into their bones. They ran until their legs burned, until their breaths came in ragged gasps, until the road seemed to loop back on itself, twisting into impossible spirals. The same signpost appeared before them again, its faded letters mocking them. Welcome to the Lost Highway. Turn back now. Sam fell to his knees, his shoulders shaking, tears streaming down his face. We're not getting out. We're trapped. Jake's hands trembled as he looked around, his eyes wild. The fog was closing in, the guardians surrounding them, their hollow eyes fixed on him, their mouths stretching wider, revealing rows of broken teeth. No, no, Jake screamed, backing away, but there was nowhere to go. The shadows loomed over him, their limbs creaking, their bodies contorting as they descended upon him. Their icy hands gripped his shoulders, their faces pressing close, their mouths opening impossibly wide. His scream was cut short. The fog rolled over him, swallowing his body, his voice fading into the void. The guardians watched in silence, their hollow eyes unblinking, their mouths slowly closing. Then they turned to Sam. He stared up at them, his body frozen, his mind shattered. The road beneath him began to crack, the asphalt breaking apart as skeletal hands clawed their way out, grasping his legs, pulling him down. The fog coiled around him, whispering his name, echoing his final, broken sob. The Guardians watched as the lost highway claimed another soul. Then they melted back into the shadows, their bodies merging with the mist, their hollow eyes fading into the darkness. The road lay empty once more, stretching out into the foggy horizon, waiting for the next travelers foolish enough to seek its forbidden path. Somewhere far away, a car engine revved, tires crunching over gravel as headlights appeared at the edge of the fog. New voices drifted through the night, laughing, curious, unaware of the shadows watching from the trees. The Guardians smiled. They were always hungry. The night was quiet again, but the fog danced along the asphalt, swirling as if whispering secrets only the trees could hear. The lost highway had claimed Jake and Sam, just as it had claimed so many before them. But its hunger was insatiable. It waited patiently, knowing more would come. They always did. At the edge of the fog, the rumble of an engine broke the stillness. Headlights pierced the darkness, sweeping over the twisted branches and illuminating the cracked pavement. A sleek black SUV pulled to a stop by the rusted "No Trespassing" sign. 3 doors opened. Voices broke the silence. "Man, this is it," Kyle exclaimed, his eyes wide with excitement. "The lost highway. You guys ready to make history?" He swung his camera onto his shoulder, adjusting the lens. "This video is going to blow up. Urban legends, haunted roads. People eat this stuff up." Maya climbed out of the passenger seat, shivering as the cold air hit her. She wrapped her jacket tighter, her eyes scanning the darkness. "I don't know, Kyle. This place feels wrong, like we shouldn't be here." "Oh, come on." Tony slapped her shoulder, grinning. "You're not getting cold feet, are you? This is going to be epic. Just imagine the views." Maya forced a smile, but the unease gnawed at her. There was something about the fog, the way it twisted and curled like it was alive, like it was watching them. Kyle was already recording, his flashlight slicing through the haze. "All right, say hi to our viewers, guys. Welcome to another episode of Paranormal Pursuits. Tonight, we're exploring the infamous Lost Highway, a road that supposedly leads to nowhere, and no one who drives down it is ever seen again." Tony hooped, throwing an arm around Maya. "And we're here to prove it's all just a spooky story. Let's do this." But as they stepped onto the cracked pavement, the temperature dropped. The air grew heavy, damp, clinging to their skin. The fog thickened, swirling around their ankles, whispering in voices too low to understand. Maya's breath hitched, her eyes darting to the trees. The shadows moved there, shifting behind the gnarled branches. She thought she saw faces, pale and hollow, watching her with wide, unblinking eyes. But when she looked again, they were gone. She shivered. "Kyle, are you sure about this?" Kyle laughed, his camera focused on the twisted signpost. "Don't tell me you believe the stories. It's just fog. Creepy atmosphere. Yeah, but that's why we're here. Come on, it's just a road." But as they walked further, the fog grew denser, coiling around them like ghostly fingers. The trees closed in, their branches arching overhead, clawing at the sky. The road seemed to stretch endlessly, leading them deeper into the mist. The silence was suffocating. Not even the rustle of leaves or the chirp of insects broke the stillness. Only their footsteps echoed, the crunch of gravel and the shuffle of their sneakers against the cracked asphalt. Kyle checked his watch. "It's been, 20 minutes? Shouldn't we have hit a turn or something by now?" Tony frowned, looking back. But the car was gone, swallowed by the fog. "I don't even see where we parked. This road's trippy, man." Maya's heart raced. The shadows moved again, closer this time, shifting along the tree line, crawling on all fours. She stumbled back, her voice trembling. "Kyle, there's something out there." He swung his camera around, but the flashlight beam revealed only fog and twisted branches. "I don't see anything. You're just freaking yourself out." But Maya knew she wasn't imagining it. She could feel eyes on her, hollow and hungry, watching from the darkness. A low growl echoed through the mist, too deep to be the wind. Tony's face paled. "Did you hear that?" Before Kyle could answer, a shadow moved behind him, long and gaunt, its limbs bending at impossible angles. Its hollow eyes gleamed, its mouth stretching into a jagged grin. Maya's scream tore through the silence. Behind you, Kyle spun around, but the shadow was gone, melted back into the fog. His hands trembled, his camera shaking. Okay, maybe we should head back. But the road stretched on before them, endless and empty. When they turned around, there was no sign of the car, no sign of where they had come from. Just fog, twisting and writhing, swallowing everything behind them. Panic set in. Tony grabbed Maya's hand, his grip tight. This is messed up. Where the hell's the car? The growl came again, louder this time, echoing from all directions. The fog churned, and shadows moved within it, long and skeletal, their limbs contorting as they slithered closer. Their hollow eyes glowed in the darkness, mouths yawning open, revealing jagged teeth dripping with black ichor. Maya's legs gave out, her knees hitting the ground as the guardians emerged from the mist, their bodies twisting and stretching, their faces distorted with wicked hunger. They moved slowly, their limbs cracking and popping as they crawled forward, eyes fixed on the trespassers. Kyle's camera fell from his hands, hitting the pavement with a hollow thud. What are they? The guardians did not answer. They only smiled, their mouths stretching wider, their hollow eyes never blinking. Maya tried to scream, but no sound came out. The fog curled around her, cold and wet, coiling up her legs, her arms wrapping around her throat. She felt the icy fingers dig into her skin, pulling her down, dragging her toward the cracked asphalt. Skeletal hands clawed their way out of the road, bony fingers grasping her ankles, her wrists, their eyeless skulls grinning as they pulled her under. Kyle reached for her, but the shadows surrounded him, their limbs twisting around his body, squeezing tight, crushing the air from his lungs. He tried to fight, to scream, but their hollow eyes bore into his soul, draining him of hope, of life. Tony ran, his feet pounding against the asphalt, his breaths ragged and desperate. But the road stretched on, looping back on itself, endless and empty. The fog closed in, and the guardians followed, their twisted bodies moving with impossible speed, their mouths stretching open, impossibly wide. His scream was cut short. The fog rolled over the highway, silent and cold, swallowing the last echoes of life. The guardians watched, their hollow eyes gleaming with satisfaction, their jagged teeth glistening with fresh blood. Then they melted back into the shadows, their bodies twisting and curling, becoming one with the fog. The lost highway was quiet once more, waiting patiently for the next curious souls to stumble upon its cursed path. The road always hungered, and the guardians always watched. Silence settled over the lost highway, the fog curling lazily over the cracked asphalt as if satisfied. The night was still, the trees swaying gently, their twisted branches whispering in the cold breeze. There was no trace of Kyle, Maya, or Tony. No footprints, no broken camera. The road had swallowed them whole, as it had so many before. But the lost highway was not truly silent. Beneath the surface, beneath the layers of ancient asphalt and rotting earth, something moved. It shifted slowly, the sound of bones grinding against stone, of flesh stretching and tearing. Deep within the road, faces contorted in agony. Their mouths were open in silent screams, eyes wide with terror, their hands clawing at the surface, trying desperately to escape the cold, suffocating darkness. Their limbs were twisted, bodies fused with the road itself, their souls trapped forever within the cursed pavement. The guardians watched from the shadows, their hollow eyes gleaming with hunger. They had fed well tonight, their bellies full of fear and flesh. But they were never satisfied. They never would be. The fog shifted, swirling in lazy circles, whispering the names of the lost. It carried their voices on the wind, broken cries, desperate pleas, echoing down the endless road, unheard and unanswered. Then, faint and distant, the rumble of an engine broke the stillness. Headlights cut through the fog, growing brighter as a car approached, its tires crunching over the gravel. A red sedan rolled to a stop by the rusted, "No trespassing" sign, its engine purring softly. The driver's side window rolled down, and a man leaned out, squinting into the darkness. He was older, his hair graying at the temples, worry lines etched into his face. His eyes were tired, his shoulders slumped with the weight of years. He glanced at his phone, shaking it in frustration. No signal, not even a flicker of a bar. "Damn GPS," he muttered, rubbing his tired eyes. "This is the last time I take a shortcut." His gaze drifted to the fog-shrouded road, curiosity flickering in his eyes. It didn't look like much, just an old, abandoned highway, cracked and overgrown, leading into the mist. But something about it called to him, a strange pull deep in his gut, urging him to follow. He hesitated, his fingers drumming against the steering wheel. It looked eerie, sure, but there was nothing out here for miles. It had to lead somewhere, right? He sighed, rolling up the window and shifting the car into drive. Probably just an old logging road. Might cut through to the main highway. The tires rolled over the cracked pavement, the fog swirling around the car as it crawled forward, headlights piercing the haze. The road stretched out before him, endless and empty, vanishing into the misty horizon. He didn't notice the shadows watching from the trees, didn't see the hollow eyes gleaming in the darkness, the twisted limbs moving between the branches. He didn't hear the low growl echoing from the fog, or the whispers of the lost crying out from beneath the road. But the guardians saw him. They watched as his car disappeared into the fog, their jagged mouths curling into wicked grins. The road always hungered, and tonight it would feed again. The fog swallowed the taillights, and the lost highway was quiet once more, until the screams began. A shriek echoed through the darkness, piercing and desperate, rising and falling as it was carried away by the wind. The trees swayed, their branches clawing at the sky, and the fog danced along the road, curling and twisting with wicked glee. The scream grew louder, filling the night, a cry of pure terror that seemed to go on forever, until it didn't. Silence. Deep, suffocating silence. Then, slowly, the fog shifted, rolling over the road, settling back into place. The lost highway waited patiently, as it always did, for the next soul foolish enough to follow its forbidden path. Somewhere far away, another engine revved, tires crunching over gravel as headlights appeared at the edge of the fog. The guardian smiled.